Welcome to Haunted Horizons GhostCast with Alison Oborn, Cameron and Kag Allwood from Haunted Horizons. And here I am. Did anybody hear that? I'm gathering not, so we'll just get straight into it. A little bit of tech thing there. All right, what we're going to talk about tonight is dreams, and what we really want to look at: can dead loved ones actually visit you in your dreams? Now, I'm going to start, before I bring the team in, I'm just going to start with a couple of experiences that I've had in the past, and I'm going to start with my own father. So when he passed away, I unfortunately didn't get to England in time to say goodbye. And once I got back from England, the strange thing is I never ever had a dream of my dad while I was there, which you would have thought was the most intense time for his funeral. But it's when I got back, and one night I was asleep and having this dream, and I saw my dad. And he looked very healthy. He was smiling. He had a checked shirt on, which I've never seen him wear this before, but I hadn't seen him for a few years. So checked shirt, I still see the clothes he was wearing. Now, I happened to say to my sister the next day, I've had this dream. I've had this dream of Dad. It felt different. It felt very, very different. It was very intense. The feeling was, even though he didn't speak, that he was fine. Wherever he was good, he was fine. We shouldn't worry about it. And I told my sister. The funny thing is, my sister had just been talking to my stepmother, and she'd had the same dream, the same night, except obviously with a few hours because of the time difference. But she described exactly the same thing, that she'd seen my father wearing the same clothes. And it turned out that the shirt and the trousers that I described were actually his favorite knocking around clothes that he was always in. And she described exactly the same thing. So was it just imagination? I don't know. Another one before we get on is my interest in UFOs and ghost tours goes back to when I first came to Australia. And the company that I worked for, there's another gentleman there, Jeff, who was very, very interested in UFOs. And we used to go to the UFO club together in the early years. We're talking about late 80s, 90s. And we were good friends. We became very good friends because of our interest. And then one day he got very sick, and he had to be rushed to hospital. And I remember being really, really devastated. I was in the garden, absolutely devastated, because I knew pretty much he was dying, and I couldn't get in to see it and say goodbye. And then suddenly there was this just complete peace came over me. It was really weird. It was just this very, very peaceful feel. I later found out that's actually round about the time he died. That wasn't the weird thing, because I then used to take his wife out a lot. We became friends as well. And what happened was I started to get Jeff coming in dreams. Now, we used to stand there. He would be standing in front of me, which I even asked him, what's it like to die? And he just did this face thing that he always used to do, this kind of thing. And I found out that every time that he would appear in a dream and we would chat, it was when his wife was going through her worst point and needed somebody to talk to. And so it became very much, almost after a few months, it became, okay, I must ring his wife because I've just had this dream again. And again, his wife would be very grateful because you're going through a bad time. And then one day, Jeff came to me in a dream and he said, I don't need to come anymore. And I have never, ever had him since. He just said, I don't need to be here anymore. I don't need to come to your dreams anymore. I don't know. They're very different. They felt very different. It was something that stayed, very intense emotion that stayed for the whole day, that emotion. And it was just, yeah. So can the dead visit you in dreams? I do have more. But before I do more, I'm going to bring on the rest of the team and have a chat. So just going to unmute them because I didn't. And add to stream. And Craig's in. Excellent. But I don't like that view. I'm going to turn it to that view.
Hey.
So there we go. Hey, guys. So what do you think? What do you think of dreams? What do you think? I've got a bigger one, and I'm going to bring that up later because it's a little bit against the norm. So, Kag, have you ever had a dream? Well, I know you've had a dream. But of a dead, don't just jump in and say yes. You don't even know where I was going with it. But of a dead person. Have you ever been visited by a dead person?
Never.
Never. So you don't know that intense emotion when you get it.
No, I don't have living people talking to me, never mind dead ones. So no, never.
Right. Can't blame them, can you? We'll just not talk to you anymore then.
That's fine. Okay. I'll go.
How did you end up down there, by the way?
It's because I'm holding Haunted Horizons up. This is what it is.
Is that what it is? Just before we go any further, I'm just asking people, what's the sound like tonight? Can you let me know on sound and video quality? Because I do believe my speed has gone down. I just need to know if there's an echo or anything. Ash, you had your dad come through when you were young. Do you want to come on and talk about it, Ash? Quite happy to have some of you, bring some of you on and off. Ash, let me know and I'll send you a link. Craig, what about you?
Well, good evening, ladies. It's nice to be here. I'm very upset with Kag not having anything to contribute. So I'd just like to say that I'm very upset.
She's just going to sit there all night just looking.
Yep. We need something. We need something from you, Kag. What do you dream about?
I have all sorts of dreams. I used to be a big believer in dreams and that they actually meant something, and I've got all the books, and then I was like, I don't dismiss the fact, because I know people are really big into dreams, and that's fine. Me personally, it's just one of those things that you have all these weird thoughts during the day. Your brain tries to sort it out at night, and I've never had anybody that's deceased come and talk to me because no one wants to talk to me.
Is that because you're going so well with your family, Kag?
My family love me.
When I go, all right, if I go without you, I promise you, I will be in every single dream. I will be your nightmare.
You are not coming anywhere near me, love. I'm telling you now.
I will make you.
I am going to be the biggest insomniac out.
I'm not sleeping. No,
sorry.
No.
Exactly.
As soon as Alison's gone, that's it. Our life becomes so much easier, Kag. So.
I know.
Big time.
What about you, Craig?
I think you probably need to go to what a dream is, so you sort of can work out whether you can contact a spirit or a spirit can contact you via a dream. I think we use ghost boxes and all sorts of weird things on the investigations. So what's the deal with them coming into dreams? Is that an easier way for them to do it, or is it an easier way for us to receive the message? So I would normally say that when you start talking about dreams and you're going into an area which is, number one, no one knows what dreams are in the first place. And no one can explain what the dreams are for or what role they have for us human beings. It's really weird. There's, how the mind works. Like, do you mind me going into this? Because I'm going to be yakking for a minute or two. So
yeah, I'm sure. Well, I think it's good to look at, different things on why we have these experiences.
Yeah, I think so. because I think it sort of explains a lot about what people report when it comes down to dreams. One of the more recent theories on what a dream is, you go back to the understanding how the brain works. Brain's comprised of little tiny nerve cells called neurons, and there's billions of those floating around in your head, and they're connected with each other by little small little areas or junctions called synapses. And what happens is you can have a little bit of an electric charge in each cell, and what happens is when you have a memory, when your brain's activated, then your brain takes all of a whole series of little neurons and it plans them out. And by putting a little electrical charge into them, it creates a memory, and that memory gets stored in your brain, and it's there forever. Provided you can recall it, your brain's going to keep that memory by a little pattern of neurons in your brain. So that over many years that you're alive, you have a lot of those neurons taken up with memories. And that's where your memories become stored. And that's why we can recall them, because they're up there in our heads.
I like to think of it as a filing cabinet.
It is. It is a filing cabinet.
Stand up at us. You just go filing through, and some of that shit that you forget about, it's lost in the...
Yeah, and then you can understand when you look at Alison's filing cabinets why she can't remember most things as well.
And when she does call it, it's all a little gibberish. So, but there's a reason. There's a reason to that as well. Is think of what a dream is when you go to sleep at night. Sometimes you have meaningful dreams, sometimes you don't. And in most cases, when we recall a dream, the dream is gibberish, and it's like a whole series of different patterns. The reason we do that is because our brain has a clean out every night. So it stores the memories, it goes through everything that's happened through the day, and it gets rid of all the junk, things which it's never going to use ever again, all the minor details, and it hits the delete button on all those. And as all those deleted little memories or flashes or pictures get deleted, they flash up. And what your brain does is sees a pattern of all these little pictures and tries to make a theme out of it, because it sees these snippets, and our brains want to work by making sense of things. So we see it as a random concoction of weirdo different types of pictures. And that's why we have weird dreams. We can't explain the dreams because they don't make any sense to us. So in most cases, what we're doing is just recalling some little weird disjointed memories during the day. That's what we're happening through our dreams. But so normally what I would say is when you're having anything to do with dreams, you're dealing with just what your brain does and your function of the brain. So it can't have any meaning at all. But I think I sit on the other side of the fence because I really think there's a role for dreams and the interpretation of dreams and what we do. It's really interesting. It's one of the reasons why I got into the paranormal in the first place, is because my story goes back to when I was 16, and it's a different type of dream. It was on a Friday night, and one of the distinct differences between dreams is when they're lucid, when they're vivid, when you remember them, and they have such an impact on your life that you can't forget them. That's what Alison's story was, is you'll never, ever forget the details of that dream. And for me, it was on a Friday night, and I dreamt very clearly. I lived in Murray Bridge. I went for a drive down to Swamport Reserve, and as I went down there, I got out of the car and I walked around and I went back to the car, and strangely enough, as I got to jump into the car, what I saw around my wrist, just around this area here, was what looked like a dark ring. Now, I didn't know what the hell it was. The best thing I can do is say it was like a scar, and I don't know. I woke up the next morning and I'm going, what the hell is that? But it was so clear, and I can remember every little detail of the dream. But it didn't mean anything. It was just a weird dream. Next day, I played football. And as I was going to take a mark, a great big fat guy came over and landed on me. And my hand was down here like this. And what he did is land on the whole thing here, pushed it down, and broke my hand, or broke my wrist, and broke my wrist right in exactly the same spot. So it was very, very weird that we had a dream the night before which predicted exactly the spot around my wrist where it was to be broken. And it was the exact spot. So it's a precognitive dream, a dream of the future. And for me, occasionally people report that sort of thing and the feeling of deja vu coming through in dreams. So if you can receive a message like that, who the hell's sending it to you? And if they can send you a message, why can't you have a dream where a spirit communicates with you? Because we're dealing with a spirit either way. So I'm actually one who believes that we can be contacted through our dreams. And, I got no reason to believe scientifically that it can. All I can say is I've had a few dreams where I have had that type of feeling. The other thing is I have been visited by my father as well, a year and a bit after he passed. And I've noticed all the comments going up, and just about every comment where someone has spoken to a dead loved one, it's been a father. I reckon that's really, really weird, just watching the comments go through there.
Yeah, I was looking at Bree's comment and Ash's comment. It has been male, hasn't it? And, you know, when I think about it, all the ones I've had have been male. Yeah, I hadn't noticed until you just said that. So what happened with your dad, Craig?
It's another one of those dreams is where I honestly thought that because of the stuff that we do, that I would have had more of a chance of something coming through. And, you know, occasionally you keep an ear out, even on investigations, for, you know, something that's personal to you, because occasionally it comes through. Well, I never did. And I'm sort of saying to myself, well, you know, if you want to talk to me, here I am. Here's the stuff to talk to me. Never came through. And all of a sudden, whammo, in a dream. That's when it came through. And we were standing outside one of the pubs again in Murray Bridge. And there he was, just standing there, just having a bit of a conversation with me. Said about 10 words, and then he ended up leaving. But I remember the pub, remember standing out there, remember what he's wearing, remember his voice, remember everything about it. It was just like really, really unusual. And
could that have been a memory from when you've done that with him, do you reckon? Or had you never ever seen him in that? Or
yeah, like if you're getting a recalled memory, and you don't remember the memory in the first place, and you might be getting it during the dream, absolutely. But I don't ever remember standing outside of that pub. What makes it even worse is Dad worked in 4 different pubs in Murray Bridge. The one we were standing outside of, the Murray Bridge Hotel, he didn't work in. So there was no connection for him out there. And there's no connection for me to that pub. But for some reason, I was dreaming of that pub standing out the front. It's got some very unique features. And one feature I've always remembered about that pub, because I've been in it, is a small hole going underneath where they used to put the kegs. And I've always thought that was weird when I walked past it, because it's nearly on the main street of Murray Bridge. So it's those little details that you recall which make it so weird. And, you know, it could have been anywhere when he came through. He could have come through in the lounge room, but, you know, he didn't. He came through in front of that pub in Murray Bridge. And to me, that's a little bit stranger, but adds more validity to it for me. It's not like a memory. So for me, I can discount that it is that memory. And, you know, again, it goes down to how lucid that dream was. You know, sometimes you wake up and you're in a cold sweat. I've had those sort of dreams where you wake up and something has happened and you know what that something is, and you know something's about to happen. It's like very interesting when you have them. And, you know, I rarely have them, but you now know of 2 of about 3 that I've had. And, you know, both of those I'll remember till the last days because they were so damn clear. So I don't know. All I can say is, you know, I know how the mind works. I know what can affect the mind. I know what mental illness is and how that affects the mind. But what I don't know about is whether people can communicate with us. I think yes. I think we're in a state where we're open to it and we got no control. Whereas if we hear something or see something getting around in our lounge room, we're probably going, I don't want to hear about that. But then when you come into an environment where you're asleep and you can't change that, you're asleep, then they come in. They can come in and there's nothing you can do about it. And, you know, if you're able to recall those memories and from the dreams, you're very lucky.
And that seems strange for me coming from you because you have such a scientific kind of base and background. So for you to make that call that you've had these experiences and it's changed your thinking, I find that a lot more interesting. So
yeah.
Now you are lagging. I don't know if we're lagging to other people. You keep freezing a little bit, both of you. So, guys, can you just let me know? Not you two,
because not to me.
It's not to you. Okay. So
no one said anything.
Internet in Australia is annoying. What do you think of? Because I was looking today at kind of a natural explanation for why we think that we have these vivid dreams sometimes, and people, with imagination, and sometimes they've kind of linked it to also that paralysis, that we're in that REM state of sleep, and it seems to be in that stage that we have these dreams. But we've also got that switch on that stops us acting out that stage of dreams. And the skeptic scientists, I guess, have said that that's also when we have our vivid dreams and when the paranormal type dreams happen as well. What do you think about that, Craig?
Yeah, I was going to get Clag to jump under the bus with that one.
I could jump on it as well.
No, it's
And I
Craig,
want to
go
look at
first.
everything. I want to look at all the facets. Then I'm going to give you a really weird story because I haven't given you all the stories yet. I'm saving my weirdest one till.
Come on, Craig.
There's two different types of sleep mode. You've got your REM sleep and your non-REM sleep. And during your REM sleep is when you dream and you have your nightmares. And that's when you can't do anything about what's happening around you. Something's got to force you out of that state. And that's usually extreme fear or an extreme reaction to something, which is a protective mechanism for your brain. If you're in non-REM sleep, that's when it's called a hypnagogic state. What you're doing is you're starting to drop down into sleep. But during that period of time, you can do things like flail your arms around or scream or something like that. So you still have that capacity. If you have night terrors or sleep paralysis, those type of things come during the non-REM sleep. That's a time when you can get up and walk around and then start, punching things if you want to, and you don't remember doing it. Sleepwalking comes during that sleep as well. So I don't know. All I can say is I know that's how it works, but all I can't explain anything to do with those things coming in and then giving me the message. If something is predicting the future, how in hell do you explain that? It could be coincidence, but oh my God, what sort of coincidence was this with a little ring around my arm? And how stupid was it when you look at it? Ring around the arm? Someone could have been holding up a sign saying, please don't play football tomorrow. If it was a spirit guide or something like that, couldn't they have just said, don't play footy? If that was the case, I wouldn't have played, which was the final, so it would have been bad. But, I wouldn't have broken my arm.
So, Kag, what do you think on all this? Because you're not a big believer in dreams, and I know that you trust Craig, and you know that he has
I'm gobsmacked, to be
a
truthful.
very... So am I, actually, because I didn't expect that from him.
No.
I honestly expected him to pull dreams apart. So it seems to be me doing all the sensible stuff, which is weird for me.
Yeah.
So, okay, you know Craig, you know his thinking, you know his rationale, and you've just heard him. So would that change your mind that it's possible?
Well, I don't know. I'm still getting over the fact that Craig's had something happen, which to me is really, really strange. And I can't believe I'm playing the role of skeptic in this one as well, which is unusual. I will never say never. It's like people saying they don't believe in ghosts. You got to have something happen to believe it. And I haven't had anything happen sleep-wise. So I will never say it can't happen. I just need that proof for me. So, and if you guys have had something happen, then I trust you. For Craig to say something, well, that's just plain strange, weird.
Hey, Kat, what about a recurring
Well,
dream? Something that's recurred time and time again?
No, I don't have recurring dreams. Yeah, I don't have recurring dreams. I know when I'm really stressed because my dreams, they're awful. But and also it's saying that a lot of people had issues with really bad dreams because of the COVID-19. A lot of people are having really bad dreams. But yeah, I've never had recurring dreams.
But that would be again us process. It's like you said, you think it's just us processing stuff from the day. And I guess if we're stressed about COVID, that's going to cause that stress. But it's a little bit different, isn't it? When you dream something and then it happens the next day. If you've ever had the dream, I don't know, Craig, when you saw your dad in your dream, how did that feel? Was it an intense feeling? Was it just, did it stay with you for the next day, or?
It will stay with me forever. For me to have an experience like that, it's like it coming on a ghost tour and seeing a ghost, because it's such a rarity, and because you're not expecting it, because your mind doesn't work like, oh my God, I'm going to see a ghost tonight. It's something you remember all the little tiny details around the incident. And with Dad, it was exactly the same. I remember the emotion. I remember the tone of the voice as we were speaking to him. There was no shock. There was just like, what are you doing here? It was that type of conversation. It was almost like he was still alive. Just very, it just run of the mill, normal, nothing. And even when I woke up, it's like I said to Nadine, I said, I think I just had a dream with Dad, and it's just weird. But it's no different to have gone around to his place 3 years ago when he was still kicking and talking to him. So I will remember. I'll remember every one of those dreams for as long as I live, because they were so important and against what I believe all this stuff to be. I mean, we can't control our sleep. We can't control what happens when we go into that state. So if that's the key to what we do, let's say, for example, our soul is sitting in there, our consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is just sitting down there. It's got nothing else to do. It's actually ripe for the picking for someone to come and talk to it, right? And I think that if it can't get out of there and it can't jump over into the subconscious mind or the conscious mind where it's talking to you and saying, that stuff's all crazy. You can't talk to a dead person. If that conscious mind's out of the picture, maybe the subconscious takes over. Maybe it's there and can do whatever it wants. That's why out-of-body experiences where you go off and you float off into the ether and see what's going on around you always happens during REM sleep. You don't get that during non-REM sleep.
I always wonder as well, because I always thought, when my dad passed away, that if I saw my dad, actually physically saw him standing at the foot of my bed if I woke up, I wouldn't be able to handle that. I just wouldn't. And I sometimes wonder, if that was my dad coming through, does he know that? Does he know? Would they know that if they just appeared next to your bed, you're going to maybe coming in through dream state, we can accept it better as well. Maybe we're more open and we can accept it because somewhere in our brain we're in that dream state. So I don't know. I could never, much as I love my dad, to have him physically appear, I don't know how I would deal with that. So there's some great stories. Guys, I'm kind of only half looking for those people who are sharing your personal stories.
Oh.
They're brilliant. Right. Kag might try and share some of them a little bit later. So Kag, maybe you can do that if you're going to sit there every now and again. I'm going to say that without laughing on them. All right, just let us talk, Kag. Then I'm going to say you get this argument that, of course, you're going to see a loved one. Of course, you're going to see a friend because they're in your mind. They're in your head. So I'm gonna come to a very strange story. And Kag, I don't think you've heard this one. I was saying earlier that if you really want to get weird, this is getting weird. All right. So here's my last story, and we'll all talk about it after. I used to, as Kag and Craig probably know, my job before Ghost Tour Guide was actually doing therapy on horses. So like light therapy and massage and stuff like that. So I was at one of the stables down the road and I was working on a horse, and the girl I was working on, her father lived on the same property. Now, the only link to me and her father was Michael kind of knew him because of the horticultural business, my husband. I'd never met him. I said hello as he walked past. And about 6 months after that, I heard from this girl that he had passed away, and that was fine. And I was working on a horse. And then a few weeks after that, I started to get him in my dreams. Now, I never saw him in the dream. It was that intense feeling that he was standing behind me. And in the dream, he was standing behind me and pushing me towards this girl that was my customer. Now, I ignored it. I ignored it and it reoccurred. And a couple of days later, it reoccurred. Same dream. He was standing behind me and he was pushing me to go and talk to his daughter. Okay. So it was starting to get really uncanny. So I was driving down with my dog to go and walk in the forest. I won't say where because that gives it all away. And I thought, okay, well, I'll stop and I'll call in. And she wasn't there. Nobody was on the property. And I knocked on the door where the father used to live on the property because they both had a house there. And there was no answer, so she obviously wasn't in there. And I said, look, if this is really, all right, if this is really you, if this is really you visiting my dreams for me to go and talk to your daughter about whatever, then I need one thing. I need a sign that it's not just a dream. And I actually said this to nobody just when I was outside his house. I said, I need to see not one, but 2 wedge-tailed eagles doing something unusual. All right. So I drove to the forest, continued with my walk, got to the forest, pulled up, opened the back of the boot. I was slamming the boots. I got the dog out, slamming the doors. I got leads and stuff out, turned around, and there, sitting on the fence post right next to the car, was a wedge-tailed eagle. All right. And I thought, okay, well, that's only one. That's only one. And then as that one flew off, a second one flew off from just down at the bottom of the post. The second one flew up. And I'm talking, they were meters away from me. I had slammed doors, got the dog out, German Shepherd out, boom. And then they just soared above me. And I went, you've got to be kidding me. And I felt I had to. It was the worst thing I ever done. Because how do you go to one of your customers to do with horses, doesn't know you're into the paranormal, and sit down and say, hey, do you know I've had your dead father in my dreams? Okay, how do you do that? But it was almost like I'd made that pact. So I did. I sat for ages outside the driveway. A couple of days later, I thought, I've got to do this. And I went in. I said, look, I won't tell you her name. I said, so-and-so. I'll call her Jane. She's not called Jane, but I'll call her Jane. I said, hey, Jane. I said, look, I don't know how to say this. I'm really embarrassed. This isn't me. I don't have this stuff. I said, and I don't know how to say it, but I have had your father in my dreams. And I said, I don't know what he wants. It's just he pushes me in the dreams towards you, and you're standing there in front. And he's pushing me towards you, and I don't know why. Here's the kicker. She said, oh, my God, I've been wondering. She said, my dad wrote a book on poetry, and we were about to get it published, and then he passed away before it was published. And they were going to have a big thing and everything. And she said, we decided to go ahead with the launch, which is next week. And she said, I was desperately wondering whether he would be there for it, whether he knows whether he'd be there for it. And I said, well, maybe he does. I don't know. Explain that one. I didn't even know the guy. The only link is he knew Michael, so I guess there's a link there, but I'd never met him apart from that once when you walked past. There you go. That's my weird story. 2 bloody eagles. I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to go and tell somebody something like that. They'll think I'm nuts. I'm a ghost. A horse therapist, not a psychic medium type thing. So
That's cool.
Kag, go on, Kag, explain that one. You haven't heard that one, have you?
I haven't heard that one, and I can't explain it. I just can't. It's just you can't.
It was really weird.
Like
you actually felt the emotion. It hasn't happened.
Yeah.
That's only once, actually twice. Like twice in my lifetime, and I'm what? I'm 21.
Yeah. What about you, Craig? Can you explain that one?
Craig.
I got no hope of explaining that one for you. I've done a lot of dream interpretation and read a lot about that and studied dreams and symbolism for a long time. And, you know, when you get down to the very nitty gritty of it, when you talk about wedge-tailed eagles, when you ask for a sign, you're just asking for any sign to come through, and you got the most obscure one that you asked for 2 wedge-tailed eagles is not something
I-
you'd see very readily.
I purposely did that because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go and talk to this girl. I really didn't. And that's why I gave it the hardest thing possible.
And that's the right thing to do, isn't it? When you're trying to work out whether this stuff is real or whether this stuff is all made up in our heads, you want to give it a challenge so it convinces you. You can't, a lot of people talk about pennies dropping or butterflies and those sort of things with communication with spirits. You know, we have a lot of butterflies getting around ourselves, so it's a bit hard to make that big leap of faith that it is a spirit. But, you know, if you start talking about things which are obscure, there's more of a chance of that being absolutely a phenomenon that we don't know about. And I think that's the case. And at the end of the day, is we have these, and not everyone has them. We were talking to Kag, and Kag's gone through, Kag's like 35 years old, and she's gone through 35 years of not getting any of these sort of issues with dreams. So not everyone experiences them. I think we're the lucky ones that have. And it depends on how we interpret them ourselves, let alone what other people say. If we think we had a dream like that, then that's great. Keep believing you've had a dream like that, because you might have another one. It might open up a channel or a method of communication that only you can do. So keep exploring it. Don't care whether people tell you you're crazy. Keep exploring it, because I think it's really important. One day you might turn around and someone says, you know, if you go to sleep exactly this time and you do this before you go to bed, have a glass of milk, burn a candle and do something else, you might find that that's the key. And you might be able to open the communication. It's like a ghost box, but only better. It's inside your head and it's more unique to you. How it works, don't know. But it seems to, for a lot of people, be a very weird phenomenon. And it's worth exploring. You know, I don't think a lot of this stuff can't be made up. I love the fact that you have dreams which predict the future. I think when you have one of those and it comes true, but it's still, again, so obscure. It's not like, oh, I had a dream that Port Adelaide won the football. It's a dream that's something that is, again, so obscure that you weren't expecting. And it might happen a day later. It might happen 30 years later. You just don't know, but you do recall the dream. I'm really interested in recurrence in dreams. So whether you have a dream and it continually goes, and what stops that dream, what happened in it, because it seems to be,
that's what I had. It was a recurring dream. It was the same dream. And it wasn't until I talked to her, I never had that dream again.
Yeah. So it's something, if you can get a message to someone, how's the best way to annoy the crap out of them until they do what you want them to do? Is you keep getting into their dreams and the same damn dream, boring the hell out of them and making you do whatever you want them to do. Because they can't come to you and poke you and say, get off your ass and go out and do it. They've got to subtly give you a hint somehow. I don't know how it works, but if that's the only way they can do it, they just got to keep doing it and annoy you until you actually get out there and do what you're meant to do. So it might be deliver a message. It might be change your lifestyle. It might be, you know, get away from this person, never see them again because they're a bad influence. Whatever it might be, whatever that message is, a recurring dream seems to be pointing you in a certain direction or a certain course of action you need to take. I love the idea of recurrent dreams because it's exactly what you would do if you can't communicate with someone. Get inside their dreams and make it hard for them not to do what you want them to do. What a great idea from the other side.
Well,
why not just go straight
forward?
Unless she would dismiss it as imagine. See, if she had the dreams, because, you know, you say, well, why didn't her father visit her? But would it be that she would think, if she was a rational person, which she was, that if she had the dream herself, she would probably dismiss it and never be sure it was him because she knows him, and whether it's
and that's what she was wanting, that permission, wasn't she?
Yeah. Whereas if her horse therapist came to her and said, hey, I don't know why, but I'm having your dead father, that would be more unusual, and that would be something that would pull her up a little bit more, because why would I be doing it? How would I know? And yeah, it was just such an important point for her to know that. Yeah.
More of a validation from you than it would be from something else.
From herself having it, works in a weird ways. Fights against my rational as well, because I have that rational side, and then it's really weird. So
okay, Alan.
All right, so Are you going to put some stories out?
I've got Alan here. He said he had a dream whilst his sister was pregnant with what would have been his first great-grandchild. So he's walking through a park by himself, came across his granddad sitting on the bench with Jess the dog. They had a great chat about everything, and yet he can't remember exactly what, except that Jess and he were inseparable, and him telling me the sex and name of his sister's baby. I don't know if it was because the name was or the name was on his mind. He doesn't generally have dreams, or even have very vivid dreams, but this one stands out head and shoulders from any dream he's ever had. So that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I don't know about you, Alan, but the feeling is what gets me with these dreams. Again, Craig, I don't know how. That's what I was trying to get from you, is how it felt the next morning. That intense feeling. It's so different from a normal dream emotionally. I don't know.
Lynn's got a cool one as well. Lynn Holmes says her dad passed away 3 years ago and they inherited the family home. About 12 months after he died, he visited Lynn in a dream. They were having a general conversation and we walked out the front of the house to the street. He gave me a big hug to say goodbye and turned and looked back over his shoulder towards the house, pointed to it and looked at me and said, "Look after it." And he smiled, and then I woke up. And she said his dad was never a hugger, and to this day, whenever I think about it, she can still feel that hug. So how nice is that? That's lovely.
Yeah. Isn't it weird? And it stays with you. It's really weird.
It's an emotionally intense experience when you have those sort of things, because you just don't expect them, and you don't expect them to have that impact on you. And if you've had one, you'll know exactly what the feeling's like. It's weird. Something you'd never felt before.
So Melissa here
totally different
she was pregnant with her first.
Totally different from a normal dream.
Yeah, and this is what I don't. If you've never had that happen, it's difficult to understand that. How can it be different from a normal dream if you've never? But then again, if you've never had it happen, then you won't know. Melissa, when she was pregnant with her first child, had lots of dreams come true. How cool was that? All sorts of.
Now I'm going to bring Ash on in a minute, because I said I'd bring him on to talk about his dad, but we'll read out a few more first. I know Ash can hear me. I know he's in the background there. Any more good ones? Well, there's lots of good ones, guys. You honestly, thank you for sharing, because there's some amazing stories here.
I would so recommend, guys, for after this to actually go through them and read them, because there's some really, really cool stories on here. I'm just having a quick look through. Can anybody else pick up any that you've seen?
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll bring on Ash, and he can tell us about his dad. Whoops. I just mute him because we don't want to hear from him. There you go. Ash, can you hear it?
Hello, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Hello.
We can hear you.
Just power of television. Mine was very weird. So mine was quite strange, actually. Mine was when I was actually a child. So between the ages of 6 and 13, we actually lived in a house where we had paranormal activity, which made it even weirder because just before we moved into this place, my father passed away quite suddenly. There was a bit of interesting circumstances under how he died, but as far as we knew at the time, it was a suicide. It kind of changed a bit as we got older, but that's irrelevant to the story anyhow. But I think, because of the circumstances of how he died, it left me kind of emotionally all over the place because we had a lot of unanswered questions. And the weird thing with my dreams is every time he came and visited me, I always found it was almost kind of at the time I probably needed it the most, emotionally just at kind of tearing point. And I'd always get him, he'd come and visit me and he'd never, ever say anything. He'd just stand there I couldn't even really tell you the background of the scenery. It was so all I could ever, and I'm not a person that dreams much or remembers dreams, even as an adult now. It's very rare I will remember a dream. But yeah, I'd always wake up the next day and remember that he was there and that I seen him, and it was never. Yeah, it wasn't. I always felt relieved the next day because there was. I mean, sometimes it got as bad as I was at to the point where I would look at harming myself. Basically, I wasn't dealing with anything very well, and I would have a visit. And I'd be good for a while. Sometimes, and it didn't happen that often, 6, 12 months, sometimes even longer. But, it probably happened 4 or 5 times at least that I can remember. And the other very weird thing I found with it is the house we lived in, which we inherit when we moved in there, as I've mentioned previously, we had paranormal activity in there. Whenever my dad visited, there would be a period where afterwards we would have no activity in the house, which I never really picked up on until I was later on in life when I used to think about it. But yeah, I was a child, it was a very active house. But whenever my dad come to visit, you'd get a few weeks of solace. And it was a very bizarre thing. But me being a logical person, it makes me wonder, was it just a coping mechanism for me, because I always felt that when he visited, I was, just gripping the edge of not being okay, and it always helped. I always felt better. And I'm not, although like I love what we do and what I do and that, I have very mixed beliefs about afterlife. So it really, the logical side of me, this doesn't really marry up with too many of my beliefs at all.
That internal fight. But I mean, the important thing is it made you feel better and it brought you back so it doesn't matter. Basically. Did you get that different feeling though when you had him through? Like when you dreamt of him, was it a different sensation to what you would have if you were just having a normal dream?
Absolutely. It felt like more real. And I know something, when you have those dreams and you wake up and you've got tears in your eyes and it feels so real. I can't explain it, but it feels more real than that. And I don't know if you've ever had one. Well, of course, many of us have those dreams, but when it feels even more real than that, because everybody has a dream that feels real, but these are like beyond it. It's almost, how do you explain it? It's almost like you could smell what's in the air. I just trying to put words to it. It's so hard. And like I said, and for me to remember it all day long, which I very rarely wake up in the morning and go, oh, I dreamt about that last night, so it's quite strange.
Because normal dreams, they're snippets. Don't know, obviously you dream, Craig, don't you? Of other things.
Well, and
it's not. It's like a weird. If you're dreaming, nothing's really like you're in a house you've never been in before, or it's just weird dreams. But these are very different. They're very detailed. They're very emotional as well, I find. But Kag, you need to have one.
Well, I can't force it, can I? It's because none of mine want to talk to me. That's why.
Hey, Kag, do you think
you need to be family?
You might be able to knock Tony off tonight and see whether he comes through in the dreams.
Oh, I doubt he wants to talk to me. We don't talk much during the day, never mind at night. I wonder if it's because I haven't lost... I mean, I've lost grandparents, but my parents are still around. So, I wasn't overly close to grandparents.
Yeah, so maybe...
Although I'm not overly close to parents either, so this will be a bit difficult. Just Mel was on the... I've had a... Sorry?
Oh, it's all right. You go.
Mel has just said that she had an interesting conversation with her granddad and then woke up to a phone call to say he'd passed away. Oh. And so I just want to say hi to everybody and also to Holly. Macca's daughter is on.
Yeah, I seen she was on.
Whose daughter? Whose daughter?
Macca's daughter's on
Macca
Holly.
from the Gungahlin.
Oh, hello.
So hello
I
to
didn't- 'cause I'm
everybody and to Holly.
not seeing all the comments here. So hello to everybody, because we can't just keep saying hello. So I do apologise if we're not always looking at your comments. Nadia Carr, I've just been looking at Nadia's. You remember Nadia? She Willow Court.
Yes.
That's an interesting one about having a little boy from Willow Court. So if you know Charmaine, who runs Tasmania's Most Haunted, she runs them at Willow Court. Nadia's with her, and she had a little boy from Willow Court who told her his full name and asked me a question. And she researched and found him in the records and got an answer to the question. And she still connects with him.
How
So
cool.
there you go. So
Well, that
my
is cool,
stomach is
isn't it?
rumbling. I hope people can't hear my stomach. I think I've got a demon sleeping in my stomach there.
You smell sulphur then?
Yeah, it's just like it's too high for the sulfur. It's like it's working its way. So hopefully you guys can't hear that. No, there's some great stuff. I'm going to enjoy. If we've missed your stories, what happens is the comments go up, and then you can only go back so far on the comments, guys. But I will answer them on Facebook. I always go back and I reread them. So if we don't get that.
Rosemary has been saying, well, actually, when you two talked about mostly only males coming through, then we had a spate of people actually saying that it's just they've had females coming through. Rosemary's on about, she went back to her, is it a 5 times great grandmother?
Wow.
And what they were dressed up in as well. So dreaming about them. So
Kirsty's just said her mum dreamed that her dad had passed before I called her to tell her. So
I think the hardest part about these dreams is trying to decipher whether you believe it's real or not as well, because you wake up and you have that, was it just a dream or was it more? That can be sometimes quite hard to deal with in itself, especially like you, Alison, you had to tell somebody else about it.
Yeah, it's the emotion that comes with it, I think, that separates. I've had dreams of people that passed away, but not. They were different. They were just dreams. You knew they were just dreams. There was no emotion to them. It was just the snippets in your head. There was no sense to them. These ones are very different, very, very different, very detailed, they feel different and they stay with you. Unless you've had one, it's really, I know you and Craig have, and it's really hard to express it to those who haven't. So
yeah. Liz was saying she's only ever had one. Sorry, Ash, what was she saying?
No, you're right, Kag.
Yes, Liz, she's only ever had one, and that was from a friend who died, unfortunately, with suicide. It was the clearest dream she's ever had. I felt him sit on the bed next to me. I felt him touch me. I could smell the cigarette smoke. I heard the message that he had for me very, very clearly. I had never had a dream like it, and I've never had a dream like it again.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a dream. It didn't feel like a dream. I had been really upset because I felt I could have stopped the suicide from happening.
Maybe that's just a way of reassuring you that you couldn't.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
That's an interesting one. Karen says, has anyone had their beloved dogs visit them? And that's something. I've never had a pet come into a dream, but I'd be interested to know. Karen, I would be interested to know as well if anybody else has had those same dreams, but with a pet. So that would be an interesting, because we have that connection. So Carol often dreams of cobblestone roads and dressed in elk. Maybe it's not a dream. Who knows? We did past life, didn't we, a while back? Maybe that's another form of that. Oh, custard cream from Essex.
Way to go, Essex.
She's had her dog in the dream who died 2 years ago. So there you go, Karen. Yes. Okay. Rosemary, you have 2. They may be rated, Shane.
that's
Yeah, we won't
cool.
go into those dreams. So, well, guys, we're coming into the last couple of minutes. So we've been on an hour. This is the type of thing you can revisit, isn't it? It just goes on. Yes to pets. Oh, Alan, you've had pets as well in yours. I've never had my pets, but I'd never thought about that. What about you, Ash? Have you had a pet come in? Dreamed of a pet?
No, the only one I've only ever had my dad. I must say, no pets, no females. And it's weird. Like I said, I only had my dad for those years, and once I kind of moved out of that time of my life and that house, funny enough, I've never had one since. Never had one before that kind of period of my life, and never since. So yeah, it's weird. It was very specific, but I'm very grateful for it. I feel that it got me through a pretty horrible part of my life. Yeah, it could have potentially saved my life at times. So, for whether it's my subconscious or whether it was actually my dad, either way, I'm super grateful.
Yeah. I mean, Holly, I'm just reading Holly's, who had a friend's husband come to her, and he passed away. He was holding me by the arm, squeezing quite firmly, saying, please tell her I'm sorry and that I'm okay. She relayed the message, and she hasn't had it since. And that was like my experience. Once the message was relayed, the dreams went away. And it seems that once we're reassured, once that, whether it's a message or just a reassurance that they're okay, once that's happened and they're not needed anymore, it seems that they just stop visiting. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Guys, this is amazing. So many stories. Just because we finish, which we're about to finish because it is an hour now we've been on, and we like to keep it to an hour. Don't stop sharing your stories, because we all are enjoying reading them, and we love hearing that other people are having those same experiences. So by all means, even though we've turned off, feel free to keep commenting and talking to each other and sharing your experiences, because that's what this is about. And we are going to read them. And we will respond to them as well. So, all right, 55 minutes. It's not 55 minutes. It's now 8 o'clock. So we have been on. Didn't we start at 7, or we were a bit late? Can't remember.
We're a bit late.
A bit late. We were a bit late coming on. Tech difficulties as usual. Comes with having really bad internet and me home. So, look, thank you to. I know who you are, Ash. Thank you to Craig and Kag for coming on and joining.
Right.
I know, it's because it's back to front. And thank you, Ash, for sharing, obviously, your personal story and your personal dreams. And I know what you mean. It is a very hard one, because I know you're very rational as well, and Craig's rational. And Kag, you need to have one. Go be nice to your family. Go talk to your family a bit more. All right?
That's all good.
All right, well, if I go first, and Craig, if we go first, if any of us go first, we are going to go and visit Kag and her dreams. And
I'm going to have the worst case of insomnia ever.
She's going to have, she thought she couldn't sleep before. Boy, is she never going to sleep again when that happens. So, all right, thank you so much, guys, for putting up with us for the last hour. And thank you for sharing your stories as well. There's some amazing, I can't wait to look back. I didn't see them all. I'm going to enjoy reading them. So, any last words, Craig?
Well, the only last word I've got for you is I can tell you the distinction between the emotions. Think of what it's like when you watch a game of footy on TV, and think of the difference it would be as you're at the game. That's a distinct difference in the feeling of the dreams. It's lucid, it's real, and it's something you always remember. And if you have the second version of sitting at home watching it on TV, it won't nearly be as intense or emotional for you. So I think that's the best way of getting across that type of emotion. Yeah. But we could go on all night about this subject. It's so cool.
Kag, any last words?
No, Jenny came out with a good one. She said it's like having your first child. Holding your first child is very different to holding somebody else's child.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's a good analogy. Excellent. Yeah. That is good. All right, you lot, go and enjoy your evening. Ash, you enjoy your evening. Kag, whatever. And if you've got any ideas of what topics and subjects you want us to cover, then message away or give us a private message. And if you've got any interesting stories, private message us as well, and we'll look at the topic, and maybe you too can come on like Ash. Ash was the first one, so sorry to everybody else. All right, with that, we are leaving. We'll catch you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.
See you guys. See you, Ash.
Yeah.
Bye.